There's the winter stockpile. Folks, this fescue that we have, you notice this is probably, that was in February. Look in there. There's green. There's still a little green in there. I'm telling you, animals will knock you over to get a little bite of that green in the wintertime. That's what makes it such good feed. And it was growing on the stump. The animals are harvesting it off the stump. It didn't take a mower, it didn't take a rake, it didn't take a baler, it didn't take a tractor to bring it out of the field, it didn't take a tractor to bring it back to the field to feed them. And all that manure that's coming out of those cows is right out there in that pasture where it was grown. Perfect. That's the way nature designed it. People say, well, you got to feed them hay when it gets cold. No, you don't. My response to that is, did cattle starve to death for 2,000 years before we invented the baler? No, they fed themselves. When it snows, they're going through snow there. We had a really bad snow. It was probably 30 inches tall at one time. I let it oh, that's the other beauty. I'll cover it. If you have tall stockpile and it's sticking out through the snow, this is what happens. It melts the snow off of the grass. The taller your stockpile is, that dry stuff sticking through the snow is a solar collector. It heats up and it takes the snow off. That's huge. This is broken soil. This is a farm that we got. It was formerly crop field. It was nuked and nuked and nuked with all these nasties. And that's what came up. Those are cockleburs, folks. I put the cattle in there and I made them eat them. That was a mistake. I put them in there too tight. The cattle ate every single one of those. They even ate the burrs, the green burrs. I put too much pressure on my cattle. And I wasn't focused on what needed to be done there. The way you whip these burrs, or any kind of weed that you're trying to put some control on, is you've got to identify your problem plant. Okay, look at that plant. What is it? I don't care what it is. What's the weakest point in that plant's life cycle? When is it? It's when it comes up in the spring. It's a baby. He's a little baby booger, right? He's got little baby leaves on him. And I was going out in that cocklebur field in April, taking the grazing off of it, because there was orchard grass and some clover in there with those burrs. The burrs weren't even up yet. They don't come up till June 1st. I was going in there in April and grazing that field off. And so what I did is I removed this nice canopy of grass, and now the baby birds come up in June, like, there's the sun. And they just kicked butt. They just went screaming up and buried my good grass. So how did I whip that? I whipped it by not grazing it. My first rotation, just leave it off. If you've got an area of your farm, you've got a lot of cockleburs or Canadian thistle or any of those nasties, identify that area. Don't graze it that first rotation. Let your beneficial plants get up. Put some pressure on it. Those baby burrs came up that next year, and you could pull the grass sward back and look down in there. They were weak-looking little dudes. They weren't getting any sunlight. They were hurting. And now we've whipped it. They're not even there anymore. I didn't have to spray them. I didn't have to brush hog them because I couldn't brush hog. I didn't have a tractor. Learn to read your cattle, folks. This is huge. You've got to look at that area right there. That's called I've nicknamed that the death triangle. If you've got cows in your herd, and it's same on sheep, it's on the left side of an animal, you've got that depression right there. You're not giving your animals enough to eat. You need to give them a bigger area or move them faster, one of the two. If you can continue to do that and move your animals across your farm, and they look like that every time you move them, I promise you, you will have an unbred cow that fall. She's not going to breed. Do you all know that's the biggest cost of a cow-calf business, is an open cow? Go to the sale barn and watch them sell and tell me I'm wrong. Bred cows in Missouri right now are selling for $1,800 to $2,000. Open cows are $700. You just left a $1,000 bill on the floor. Somebody got it. You didn't get it. You lost $1,000 because you lost track of the animals. Now, people will look at that paddock and go, but Greg, it looks like you got quite a bit of grass out there. Why is she so thin? You didn't see the paddock I took them off of. Okay, it was pretty short. But I learned. You learn. That's what you do. Every morning you wake up, it's a new learning experience. That's what makes life so exciting. That's a good one. That's not my cow, by the way. That was down south. A lady, she said, well, she's actually put on some weight. She looked bad this winter. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. Folks, learn to read your body condition scores. Go to the internet and type in cattle body condition scores. They're 1 through 9. Learn to read what that is on your cows. You want a body condition score of 6 to 7 in the fall. Folks, I'll get your question in a minute. If a body condition on your cow is 6 to 7 in the fall, we're talking about October, November time period, that cow's going to winter for you good. She's going to give you a calf in the spring, probably not going to give you any health issues with that calf. But if she's thin in the fall, get rid of her. Don't try and winter that cow, because all she's going to do is continue to drop weight, and then you can end up selling her for nothing. If she can't put on weight in October, she sure as heck isn't going to put on weight in December, January. So get rid of her. Don't name your cows. No, I'm serious. That's a big one. I've been on a lot of farms, and they're like, well, I can't sell Bossy there. She's been with me from the start. She didn't give me a calf for 5 years, but I'm not selling her. I'm like, what? She didn't give you anything for 5 years and you still have her? Well, yeah, that's Bossy. She's part of the family. Yes?
In one of the slides you used when you had some type of fork that you wanted to get rid of, you mob grazed and trampled it down, and then in that last one...
I'll repeat the question. Go ahead.
That last one, you decided to let it grow for a year. What's the decision-making on both of those?
Yeah, the question was on the first picture with a Ceresia lespedeza. On that one, I decided to put some animal impact on it to try and make it more productive. On the other one, I just let it go on the cockleburs on that first grazing pass. It depends. It depends on the plant. See, that Ceresia lespedeza, it is a nasty booger. It's hard to kill. It's hard to put any pressure on. If you don't put pressure on it in the first spring and you try and do it in the summer, you can't do it. It's already mature. On the cocklebur, I knew it didn't come up till June 1st. And so by skipping rotation, I could benefit my lespedezas, the clover, orchard grass, timothy, fescue, all those good plants could come up and put pressure on that plant. So it really helps to know when those plants come up on your pastures, what month. And that can give you a tool to put some pressure on that plant. On the Ceresia, if I'd have held off and tried to put pressure on it in the summertime, I've done that, doesn't do any good. Doesn't do any good. It just comes right back. You can't hurt it. Yes, Justin.
What about briars, thorns, and small trees?
Briars and thorns. Folks, be careful with briars on your cows' teats. I did this. I put my mineral feeder right in the middle of a briar patch after I ran over the briars with my four-wheeler, mashed them down pretty good, and I put that feeder right in the middle of them. Those cows went and just beat the snot out of those briars, eating mineral. And I got to notice my cows were kicking at my calves when they tried to suck. I'm like, what's going on? And I got to looking. Those dang cows had cut their teats going in there through those briars. And so when the calf sucked on the teat, it hurt, and she'd kick at him. It took me about 3 days to get over that deal. If you're going to put pressure on briars, unroll hay in there. Unroll hay and cover the briars up. And then the cows can come in and trample that hay on top of the briars. But don't just stick something in nasty briars and expect your cows to take them out. You'll tear up the udders on those cows. Steers, if you had steers, they don't have an udder, maybe you could do that, but it's going to suffer. You're not going to get good animal performance on those steers. Yes?
Have you found that ewes are better at handling that than a cow would be?
Yeah, our sheep really go after the briars because they got a small little mouth. they can go around that plant and pick those leaves off. Thorn trees and multifer rose bushes are the two favorite foods of our sheep. They will eat a multifer rose bush before they ever will a bite of grass. Every time.
They don't get torn up like
No, they won't get torn up. No. Nope. Nope. I love the sheep for that purpose because they eat some pretty nasty stuff. Yep.
Is there ever time to mow?
Is there ever a time to mow? I can't answer that question because we don't have a mower. Folks, fossil fuel is something that I don't like spending money on unless I can get paid back 10 times for every gallon I use. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to mow. Not when I have animals. Yep.
Can I address this question?
Yes.
We had on our farm last spring, about 5.5 weeks, and Wilson here saw the repercussions of that. We had about 24, 25 inches of rain. And I've got a lower, like in the water table, front 12 acres that was 4 to 6 acres was underwater for weeks. I mean, you literally could have taken a boat.
Yep.
There.
Went fishing out there. Yep.
Yeah, we could have. So what happened was it killed everything, or set back everything. The fescue, it recedes. The fescue is like, it was half brown and dead and nasty. And for the first time in my life, I went out and bush hogged because I had to reset that 12 acres because I had to have it to graze later in the year.
Mm-hmm.
It took some time.
Well, that's a management decision you can make. I mean, if you have a flood that comes over a large part of your farm and it's covered with dirt, and you want to refresh it, and you need that forage, I would probably think about going after and doing something with it. I have a friend. Yeah. I have a friend. Half of his ranch goes underwater 5 times a year. We're talking 32 feet of water over his bottom. 32 feet. You think you had water? 32 feet. And he deals with that. But that's the richest part of his farm. He never brush hogs it. He just waits for the rain to come in, wash the blades of grass off. But all that sediment, he's catching everybody's sediment down there in that bottom. My gosh, he's got plants as tall as that ceiling when he can graze. But he's got to watch it. If he's got cows down there and you get a big rain, they're gone. Proper gut fill. That's proper gut fill right there, folks. You need to make sure that it's flush. There's no bone sticking out. You don't want to see that hip bone right here. You don't want to see that indention. It needs to be flush. So when you move your cows in the morning or at night, you're out there rolling your wire up or opening the gate, position yourself on the side of the gate where you can observe as the cows walk by into the new paddock, that area on the left side of the animal. Just sit there and look at them. If over half of them are shrunken in, make that next paddock another third bigger. Or move them faster. Instead of a 24-hour move, you might want to go to a 12-hour move. That's our soil life feeder. This is something that I made. You all can make that. Matter of fact, if you all will email me from our website, I will give you those directions how to make that, the plans for free. That cost me $250. You can use your four-wheeler or a little truck. You don't need a tractor, and it does this. So you this is a 2-ton come along. You can actually move the bale to some broom sedge, or if you want to move it to the back of your farm, you can feed your livestock back there. The beauty of this little guy is, that's what we're using right now. That's what we're using right now if we have to feed a bale. Because it's been wet, I don't want to tear up my pastures. You won't tear your pastures up. You get a tractor out and you're getting a lot of rain, you're going to leave ruts everywhere. This little guy, and in the savanna areas where we're clearing the timber, I don't worry about stumps. I just don't worry about them. I go right over top of them. I got a four-wheeler. This thing can go over a stump. You're not going to tear up a differential on your truck. I mean, they're awesome. Snow, we'll unroll them on the snow, bring the cows in, and you tell me why anybody would want to feed a cow in a bale ring. I just got done with a talk, South Missouri. Got to be careful what I say because this is being recorded. Everybody down there, you're wasting hay when you don't put it in a ring, and the hay's worth this much per bale, and you need to grind that hay. You need to buy a bale processor. What? $48,000 bale processor to grind the hay so you don't waste any. I'm sorry, but for $48,000, I can buy a lot of hay. And I want to waste some. I do want to waste some. If you want to call it that, you can call it waste. I'm calling it fertilizer. I'm going to spread that stuff out. Folks, if you have a bale ring and you put that hay in there, only about 20 cows can get around it. And I promise you, within a winter time, you're going to kill a calf around that bale ring. Those cows are going to stomp it right into the mud. Because that little baby calf, on a cold night, he's going to get right up against that bale ring. And those cows are fighting for position. And the baby calf's laying there asleep. He's dead. Happens. I worked with a guy, it happened every year. I'm like, Ron, why are you feeding in the ring? Well, I don't want to waste any hay. You're losing 2 calves a year. You could buy quite a bit of hay with 2 dead calves. Well, I don't want to unroll it. I don't want to destroy my pastures. I'm like, what? You're not destroying your pastures. You're putting the fertility. And they say, well, we can push all that up in a pile in the spring where the bale rings are, and then we can spread it with a manure spreader. I'm like, what? That makes a lot of sense. The cows are doing it for us. And you can't spread that urine in the spring. It's gone. You can scrape up the manure, but you can't scrape up the urine. It's gone. So this is a huge tool. And we'll go out on, if we get a lot of snow, we'll unroll 5 days right out on top of the snow. And then each day we just move a wire. So we're using our hay like winter stockpile. Just put all the hay out Monday or Sunday or whatever day you got some time, and then just move a wire. You don't have to go out there every morning and unroll hay. This is a deer farm that we just got. Deer hunter owns it, and it was all Kentucky 31 fescue. And we went out there and started doing some of these practices, and this came up. This is a sweet clover. This is a white one. It puts down 250 pounds of nitrogen per acre. It's a good soil builder. The old timers used to use this when there wasn't chemical fertilizer. That's what they grew their crops with. We have flying sheep. They like to fly. I caught that ewe just right. She's probably about 7 feet in the air, it looks like. Barbados, that's a Barbados black belly. They are very athletic. Our main sheep are the white ones, the St. Croix. We like the St. Croix. Those are solar-powered soil builders. So they're catching sunlight from the plant. There's no fossil fuel required to keep that herd going, folks. That's where the money's at. The money is in having a group of animals, I don't care if they're sheep, goats, or cows, or pigs, where they can feed themselves. Our pigs, when we started feeding our pigs, we rotate them every 2 days in the summertime through the woods. And we hand feed them. We don't put out a feeder where they just go there and chow down on everything they want to eat. We hand feed them. So we can kind of ration what they get. This was kind of cool, though. We started noticing that the hogs, when you moved them, that first day you moved them, they didn't touch the feed till that night. They weren't going to eat anything in there. It was a corn soy diet. They were going after everything in that paddock first, and then they would go eat the feed. Yes?
By hand feed, do you mean you had a trough?
Yes, I had a trough.
Okay.
By hand feeding, that's what I mean. We had a trough, and each pig got like 7-8 pounds of grain per hog. But what was really neat is I raked up, we had a really good hickory nut year that fall, and we butchered our pigs. We didn't get them all ate. There's one great big tree in my front yard, and the squirrels were just tearing them up. I'm like, you don't get all those. I went out and got like 3 bushel basketfuls of nuts and put the feed in for my pigs, and the pigs are all kind of eating at the feed, and I went and got a bushel of those nuts, poured it out the end. One of the hogs was like, what do you got? You know, hogs are curious. Walked over and he put his nut, the first nut he cracked, every single hog left the feeder. And they came over and cleaned up every single hickory nut. It was like a bunch of kids eating Hershey bars. I should have videoed it and brought it to my feed supplier. So this is what my hogs think of your feed. It was pretty cool. Fresh trampled litter bank. So that's that stuff that young man was holding a while ago. With this one, that's a lot higher quality litter bank. You know why? A lot of legumes. It's got a lot of good forage in it. So the higher the quality of the forage that you can trample on the ground, the bigger dividend you get in fertilizer. It's the same way on rolling hay. If you find somebody that puts up really good high quality hay and you can get it reasonable, that hay unrolled on your farm is going to be worth a lot more than broom sedge hay, poor quality hay. So just remember that. This is another deer farm we got. We came in and trampled the forage, which was Kentucky 31. That's what came back. Beautiful stuff, folks, beautiful. This has got the yellow sweet clover in it. It's got the white sweet clover. It's got red clover. There's all kinds of weeds and forbs in there. There's a giant milkweed coming up. Nothing in that paddock survived. Now what happened is the cows went into there and tore all the leaves as high as they could reach on those trees. This is deer hunting. I don't want to kill all those trees. And you can adjust how many trees you kill with your livestock by how tight you put them in there. So if you need more trees, don't put them in there too tight. They won't kill so many trees. That's before the mob. This is a riparian zone along the creek. And I know that's taboo. You don't want to put cattle in the creek. Well, we didn't, except for 12 hours. That's what it looked like after. And that's what it looked like as we brought the pigs through. So I went in and did a TSI, timber stand improvement, which would have been over here. That's what these trees are laying on the ground. I went in there and I cut all the elm, the junk trees that were too close together. They weren't doing anything. And I left the walnut and the oak. And brought the pigs in, and the pigs rooted it up. We only left them for 2 days. In other words, I didn't want a hog to leave a hole this deep. And you can adjust how deep a pig goes by how big an area you give them and how fast you move them. So we were moving those hogs just when they had the top of the layer of that soil exposed, just the top. And a hog will take its nose and it's just constant. It's eating stuff that you can't even see. I don't know what they're eating, but they like it. And they're eating it. That's all I care. They're doing good. And when they get that top cleaned up, we'd move them into another strip. I came behind them with just a spin seeder, one of those that goes over your back, with cover crop seed. So there's 9 different cover crops in there. There's sun hemp, sunflower, sorghum sudan grass, corn, beans, radishes, Egyptian cabbage, field peas. I think that's it. There was 9 of them. But then the cattle came in behind and they took this down. The cover crops, I think, have a lot going for them. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of density are you looking at for pigs in that type of situation?
The question is, what kind of stocking density are we looking at for pigs in this condition? I'm looking at my graze. In other words, I call it a graze. You might call it your root. I don't want, in other words, if you have pigs in there too tight, they're going to destroy the landscape. They're going to go deep. So you need to give them a bigger area. Watch how deep they're rooting. That'll give you a really good idea on stocking rate. We were probably stocked at, maybe eight hogs per, not even a 1/16 of an acre. But they were being moved every 2 days. You don't want to give hogs too big of an area. You know why? They'll walk their weight off. They will. They'll just walk, and they'll walk all the weight off. So you're feeding them this grain that you bought, and they're walking a lot of that weight off. So don't give them too big of an area, because they will. They'll walk a lot of that grain right off. In other words, it's hard to get them to finish. We're looking at now bringing hogs in later. I'll get you in a minute. Bringing hogs in instead of maybe May, bringing them in June, so we can catch more of the acorn and the hickory nut crop in the fall, and the persimmons. Hogs love persimmons. And we're planting tons of persimmon trees now. Yes?
What kind of fence are you using?
What kind of fence are we using for the hogs? Polywire. Polywire. I think I may have a picture of it. No. Braid, I'm sorry, not polywire, Braid. Folks, the difference between polywire and Braid is phenomenal. Braid, the wire is braided. Polywire is twisted. And the Braid will have 3 more stainless steel strands in there. It's double the connectivity of polywire. It's good stuff. The best I've found is through PowerFlex. You can buy a roll of it 1,320 feet, and it'll go on a geared reel for about 50 bucks. I would recommend buying a roll of that and then cutting that roll in two. Put 660 on a reel. Don't put 1320. If you got pigs especially, that makes it a lot easier to roll up and take down. Yes?
Do you have a training program for pigs?
Yes. The question was, do we have a training program for our pigs? Absolutely. Don't get some pigs and bring them onto your farm and put them in the woods or behind polywire. They're not going to be there 5 minutes. You're going to be out there chasing pigs. You may not get them back. If they're not trained to you and feed, they may just take off. So we have a steel corral pen. It's heavy enough that a hole can't fit through the spaces, and we put polywire around the edge of that corral. And we'll put their water in there and their feed, and it only takes about 7 days. But make sure that wire's got a minimum of 8,000 volts in it. You can't do it with 4,000. 8,000. Folks, that spark will jump that far to that pig's nose. When he goes up, I mean, it's going to find him. And he's going to squeal, and he's going to go running into his little house, and he's still going to be screaming. Make it hurt him, and they won't mess with it anymore. Let me get you and then you behind. Yes?
If your fence goes down and the pigs are testing it again, can they be retrained?
If the fence goes down and they go through it, can they be retrained?
Yeah, I had an issue where they were trained at one point, went through the dry season, and there were lots of escapes.
Yeah, you've got to get them in tight, make sure that it's hot again. You might have to even take a water hose and go around the edge of the wire, just so that when they go up to it, if it's really dry, they're not getting shocked because they got cloven feet on dry ground. They're not grounded. They're not grounded. The bigger the pigs get, the easier they are to keep in. Behind you, yes?
What was the name brand of the braided polywire?
The name brand of that braided polywire is called PowerFlex. Just Google it, you'll hit it. It's a company in Missouri. They sell the best.
One strand or two?
For little pigs, 20-pounders, we get in 20-pound feeder pigs. We may run that first week at least 2. Once they get up to 40 pounds, we'll go back to 1 wire. But when they're little guys, they can slide under that. You need 2 wires, we found. Put 2 wires up. I don't want my pigs getting out. Let me get you in the back, then I'll get you. Yes?
Do you normally run the cow after the pigs as opposed to vice versa, or you switch it up?
Do we normally run the cows after the pigs? Yeah, there's got to be something there for them to graze, the cows. And if you put pigs in front, I like to put some cover crop down. Otherwise, it's just not going to come back fast enough. Folks, that's an annual. These are all warm seasons. That wasn't sowed until July. My gosh, it was up. It just buried the weeds. It's just pure good stuff.
What about vice versa?
Putting the cows in first and bring, yep, you can do that. You can bring the pigs behind the cows. Matter of fact, when we had Tamworth pigs, we bonded the pigs onto the cows. So when the pigs moved, they were right with the cows all the time. And we didn't feed them anything. And when we did that, those Tamworth are a true grazing pig. And they thought they were a cow. They really did. They thought they were a cow. And the cows didn't like the pigs at first. They butted them, knocked them around, but the pigs wouldn't give up. They're like, no, we really like you all. You're going to get used to us. And they did. They did. And what was really cool was the pigs, you go out there in the summer, and the hogs were just going through the manure paths. They'd roll in them, put their head in them. All you could see was their eyes. Everything else was solid green. They needed a waller, and those cow paths were wet and soft and juicy. And so when they ran out of a cow path, they would actually go up and bump a cow. That's how smart a pig is. When they bump the cow would get up and dump a crap, and the pig, yeah. They go rolling in it again. Yeah.
Are you using the braided for all the animals or just the pigs?
Yeah, the braid's for everything. Yeah, the braided wire is used for the cows, pigs, sheep, everything. Yep.
Will the pigs eat a lot of the cow's manure, and will that be any kind of...
That's the reason that question was, will the pigs eat a lot of the cow's manure? We didn't find that they would eat the manure very well because it was all grass. Now, my dad, when he was growing up, for every 17 steers, they put a couple hogs out there. For every 17, they could finish 2 hogs without feeding them any grain. Because the hogs would go through the manure and eat the corn. They had them in a feedlot and they were feeding them. And those cows would poop, or the steers, and the hogs, they just clean up the corn out of the cow pat. I didn't see them eating it, but they would roll in it. They put their head in it. They spread it out. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get that done. Yes?
Did they get parasites from eating the manure?
No, a hog, no. The question was, can a hog get parasites from eating cow manure? I didn't see it. Our hogs are so darn healthy. And that's because they were moved all the time. They were never in their own feces. That's part of it. Don't put them in their own feces. Okay? We walk our cows. We don't haul anything. There's 370 head coming out of that gate. That's a public blacktop. And we wait till 10 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's at work. And we put a pile wire. That's a guy, he mows that yard, and this guy mows his yard. So we don't want the cattle in the yard. But we only got to be on that blacktop for about a quarter mile. Then we're back onto a gravel road. They can walk. That's the beauty, I say. If you can find some land around you to lease, try and get it close. Maybe you can walk your cows from your farm to that farm, and vice versa, back and forth. Mob graze, 60 days recovery. In other words, we beat the heck out of that, and we came back, and that's what came back. Folks, there wasn't a single clover plant in that paddock the first time. Where in the world did that clover come from? I don't know. That's been a real mystery. And you notice it's only in that one paddock. And I treated all the paddocks the same. I don't know. It's almost like somebody went out there and played a trick on me. Make me scratch my head. So what we're trying to do, folks, is we're trying to bruise the soil. Okay? We're bruising the soil with the cow hoof. So as the cows walk across your farm, I don't want them to eat it all, but I like for them to step on it all. If they can step on it and they step on that dirt, the microbes, did you all realize that 90% of all soil life resides in the top 3 inches? 90%. And so if you can get an animal to step on that, it goes, ah! It shocks them all to life, the microbes, and they all get easy. They all get busy eating each other, exuding plant food, taking in the plant food, and the plants can bring me phosphorus, bring me potassium, and the microbes, really, you need some of that? Yeah, I'll go get that for you, and it's a trading. So as the plant asks for different minerals and nutrients, these microbes, the fungi, said, what do you need? I need some phosphorus. I'll go get you some phosphorus, but I want a little sugar in return. Okay. Plant says, I'll give you some sugar. And that's the way it works. Unfortunately, folks, our soils are broken in the United States. It's not working that way anymore. We've only got 20 years of phosphorus left in the United States. That's it. 20 years. What are we going to do? You can't grow food without phosphorus. Nature had a mechanism set up, and it still is in healthy soil. The way it works is the plant is sitting here growing, and it's got its roots down, and the fungi actually live in the root. And the plant's like, man, I am starving for some phosphorus. And this fungi, they got these little ancillary hair, angel root hairs that go 40, 50 feet from the plant. You can't even see them. And they're sourcing all these minerals back to that plant. And the plant goes, man, I needed that fix. I'll give you some sugar. Well, guess what happens now? We're chemical fertilizers. So the farmer goes out, takes a soil test. All right, you get 150 pounds of phosphorus. You get 10 pounds of potassium, 150 pounds of nitrogen. You're good. And the plant's like, all right, I'm ready. So the fungi says, could you use some phosphorus? No, heck no. You go fishing. I don't. So the fungi die. That's what's happening right now. We don't have any fungi. We don't have any fungi in our soils. It's something that we're working on. It's exciting. I think we can get the fungi back. We got tons of bacteria. We don't need any more bacteria in the soil. We need some mycorrhizal, arbuscular fungi. Arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. Read up on that. Folks, there's a lady I'll just tell you real quick, her name's Dr. Wendy Tahara. Go on the internet, Google it. She's got a great presentation. It's about 30 minutes. Wendy Tahara, Teheri. I may have spelled it wrong, but it's close. That'll get you there. Watch that presentation. That's her PhD. She's found the right fungi. It's exciting. I think we may be able to get them back in the soil. Do cattle destroy riparian areas? Absolutely. There was cattle on that. They destroyed it. Well, no, they didn't. It's because of the way we grazed it. This is a farm we leased. We've had since 2001. The previous owner continuously grazed that. All the banks were just solid mud. There wasn't any water in that creek. So we let it grow up. We started trampling the litter on the ground. We built the carbon bank back. And now the water is being slowly released from the hillsides down into the aquifer. And now there's fish in there. There's frogs, all kinds of woolies. There's snakes. And look at the grass right down to the edge of the water. Folks, grass, good sod, growing along riparian zones, that's what holds back erosion, not trees. Go and look at a creek that's been fenced off, and there's no livestock in there. There's trees along that creek. Tell me what's happening to those roots. And the trees, they're falling off in the creek. That sod holds that soil right where you need it. And so what's happening is, every time it rains, I'm catching all my neighbor's sediment. And you can go in here after a heavy rain, and there will be dirt up on some of this grass. And so my creek banks are getting uppening. They're coming up. They're coming up. They're coming up. My water's getting deeper. You don't want to step off in that. You don't. Not in the wintertime. You go to your waist. And it's cold. I did it. I'm like, I can't see the bottom, but it can't be very far down there. Yeah, it was. Clear up to my waist. That's cool, though. We've making a water source out of a dried up creek bed by grazing it correctly. Short duration, get them out of there. Short duration, get them out. There's the Tamworth. They were actually grazing with the sheep. Yes.
You gotta have a lot of land to be able to do a lot of the trampling and
No.
moving them fast enough.
No, you can do it in your yard. We had a guy come to our mob grazing school. The question was, do you need a large group of animals or a large farm to do what I'm talking about here? No. You do need an animal, though. You need to start with one. We had a guy come to our mob grazing school a couple years ago, and he had one cow. One. He went home and applied the principles. He had a halter on it. It was a milk cow. All he had was a 5-acre yard. He tied that cow out every day and watched the graze trample ratio, make sure it didn't take it down too low, and rotated her through those 5 acres, milked her, and his pasture got good, his yard. He did a great job with one cow on a rope, Well, that's what he had. He didn't even have to build any fence. He just had a tame milk cow on a rope. Ian's doing the same thing, folks, in South Africa. Ian Mitchell Ennis. He's the one that helps us with our mob grazing school. Ian's got 14,000 acres. You know what his problem was? He started growing too much grass. When he put all his animals in one group and started moving them, he started growing too much grass. And he had to lease out half of his ranch. That's what he did. So he leased out 7,000 acres, and now he's up to 6,000 cows. He was at 1,000 when he first started. That's the problem you'll have in time. You'll start growing so much grass that you got to go find a way to get more cows on it. So it's a good problem to have. This is our water crossings. This water crossing on the side here, that's just metal. And it's on a big steel cable. The steel cable goes across the creek. And so when the water floods, that goes up, clear up on top of the creek. All the logs, all the debris can go under that. And when the water level goes back down, there it is. So there's no water crossings to check or wash out. It works really good on creeks, draws. Yes?
With
the previous example, you're just talking about he started to grow too much grass, and at what point do you realize, okay, I'm getting too much grass, I'm resting it for too long? And
At what point do you feel like you're growing too much grass? Do you need to do something different, or you don't have enough livestock? At that point, you either need to lease out part of your farm or go buy or bring somebody else's cattle onto your farm.
yeah, but what conditions on the land are you seeing that like, is there a time period?
The first thing you'll see is your animal performance will drop off. And that's because you got so much forage that you're trying to get around that farm. By the time the animals get around that farm, it's way too mature. It's like feeding them a cedar tree. The cows are eating it, but they're not doing very good on it. You've got to keep that forage where it's kind of vegetative. You don't want to get on it when it's this tall. Folks, in the springtime is the hardest time to manage your grass. And that is because in the springtime, that grass plant comes up, it's green, and the cow reaches out with her tongue and lops that dude off. There's no dry matter. There's nothing in that grass but water. And so it's dangerous to stand behind your cows in the spring. They'll just blast you with diarrhea, okay? That's because they're getting too much protein. Our cows don't do that anymore. And that's because we've got it on our grazing chart right now at home, we're saving 160 acres for that 300 cows for April. So when the April grass comes up, we've got some dry matter. We've got some dry matter that was grown last fall. It's dead, it's brown, and that green comes up in that dry matter. And when that green comes up in that dry matter, that cow's going after that green, but guess what else she's getting? A little bit of dry. It's a perfect way to balance a rumen. Folks, cows will lose weight in that first 2 weeks. They'll lose weight. And do you want a cow losing weight in the spring when she's going to be calving? If a cow's gaining weight when she calves, it's a 97% breed back. If they're losing weight when they calve, it's about a 57% breed back. So make sure there's a plenty of nutrition. They're gaining weight when they calve. And they will if you give them some dry matter. Now, your first year, let's say you don't have any stockpile, you're stuck. You got to put out some dry hay on that spring grass. Straw, anything, just so they can get a few bites of it. And they'll use that dry matter to, it's like giving them an Alka-Seltzer. Their gut's upset. They got too much protein in there. There's no energy in that grass. They need something to dilute the effect of the excess protein. And that's what that dry matter does.